Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Series 6, Episode 11, The God Complex. So this episode takes place in what appears to be a 1980s hotel at first, but is actually a space prison that's designed to look like a 1980s Earth hotel. The Doctor, Amy, and Rory accidentally arrive at this hotel and encounter three other characters: Rita, Howie, and Gibbis, the latter of whom is an alien. I can't remember its species name. Begins with a T, and it's the most scared species in the universe, but also one of the oldest because they allow other races to oppress and enslave them, and they use it as sort of an advantage into their coexistence, as it's also slightly sly as well as cowardice. We're going to see another one of these characters in another episode written by Toby Whithouse, who writes this episode, which will feature in Series 9. That's quite nice. We get a alien from the same race as this character played by David Walliams in this episode reappear in a later episode. That's some nice continuity. Alongside these characters is also a character called Joe, but he's not in the episode too long, so I won't speak too much about him. But all four of them seem to be trapped in this 1980s hotel, as well as the Doctor, Amy, and Rory. And it appears that people are trapped in this hotel and forced to choose when they find their room, they experience their biggest fear, which allows them to go back on their faith in order to prevent them from their fears from being taken by this Minotaur creature. But instead, it's not their fate, it's not their fear it feeds on, it's their faith. So the Minotaur feeds on the faith of these people, and after seeing their greatest fear, which then makes them forces them to praise the Minotaur creature and to actually allow the Minotaur to kill them and take their faith away from them, as we see throughout the episode. As it turns out, at the end of the episode, the Minotaur is related to the Naimon from the Horns of Naimon from season 17. That's a nice piece of continuity. But yeah, so the episode basically focuses around the Doctor and company trying and find a way out of the hotel and trying not to be go inside their room and face their biggest fear. Otherwise, they would fall back basically the Doctor thinks that they fall back on their faith in order to survive, but that's eventually what turns out to be what the Minotaur wants. Well, technically, the Minotaur does not actually want this. He wants to die. It wants to stop doing this, but it's forced to carry on until the Doctor is able to stop Amy believing in him, end her faith in him for a moment to kill the Minotaur. But more on that later. So this episode has a really unique premise and a really good idea. It's also got some good supporting characters. Rita is a fantastic supporting character. She's so likeable, so fun, quite a clever character. Very much a potential companion right there. But once she's seen her biggest fear in the Doctor's getting all friendly with her and the whole potential companion thing here, we know, oh, she's so dead, especially when she says praise him into the camera. We know she's so dead, but that's a shame because she would have been a great companion, a bit like with Linda Moss from the Battle from the Parting of the Way. So she would have made a great companion, but sadly, no, she stuffs it this episode. Before she snuffs it, I should say, Joe. His character seems like, if this was another episode, he could be seen as this snarky, unlikable character like Rixton Slade from Voyage of the Damned. However, he's actually, when he's on screen, he's maybe there's hint of that type of personality, but he's actually all right. Come to think of it, but he's only on screen a little bit, so there isn't really much of a time to develop the personality. Besides the fact he's a gambler and believes in luck. We also have Howie, who is a online conspirator, and he believes in online conspiracies, and he believes that they are actually in a CIA underground bunker underneath Norway, and he believes the Earth is on a collision course or something, and so this is where all the rich people are going to be sent by the CIA to avert a disaster. To which Rory responds with, he actually comes up with a theory that's more ridiculous than what's actually going on. That was quite a funny moment. His character's also just gotten off a stammer, as Rory explains later, and his theory is being teased by pretty women about his stammer, them just teasing him about his stammer and making fun of him that way. Okay, that could have been explored a little bit more. Toby Whithouse, how he stammer and being scared of being teased about it by these random girls. Speaking of things in the room, yeah, things in the room. By the way, Joe's fear is some these dummy things that we've seen in the Series 6 trailers. And Rita's is failing her parents. As we see, her greatest fear is that her dad is cross with her, very cross, angry with her that she got a B in mathematics. Hang on a second, a B in mathematics? And you're calling her lazy, Rita's father? I think I only got a D or an E in my maths GCSEs. So a B for me would be an achievement. And you're saying that she's lazy? I get you want her to have fantastic grades, but a B in mathematics equals lazy? He's either a really strict father or he's a dick. Or both. Anyway, the other rooms also feature weeping angels in a smaller cameo role this time round, which turn out to be Gibbs's fear. Unlike the other characters, however, he does not fall back on his faith when he sees them and actually manages to survive this episode. So even if the other characters got picked off one by one, apart from Rory, which I'll explain in a bit, Gibbs could have potentially survived, along with Rory and potentially the Doctor as well, as he's not scared by his supposed biggest fear in his room, which does not actually get revealed until Time of the Doctor. I might spoil it later in this review so that we can quickly cover it. Anyway, in the other room, we also have this clown thing in a room for some reason, and this PE teacher who could be for Rory, except Rory isn't actually scared. But this PE teacher comes out. It's a possible reference to the Doctor's wife. Otherwise, that bit was actually unneeded, apart from for the Doctor to be and other characters to be distracted from what Harry was doing. Amy and the Doctor also find their rooms. Amy finds the room number 7, which relates to the fact that when she met the Doctor, she was 7, and discovers that her biggest fear is to keep on waiting for the Doctor, and it's her faith in the Doctor that the Doctor has to break when they're having to stop the Minotaur. Meanwhile, the Doctor finds room number 11, because he's the 11th Doctor, and it's revealed in the Time of the Doctor, because we don't see it here, we don't know what it is, although he says who else, and the cloister bells are ringing. In the Time of the Doctor, it's revealed to be the crack in time. We won't know this for another 2 years and a bit, 2.5 years until that episode, but it will turn out to be the crack in time, which doesn't actually line up with the line who else, because the line who else implies it could be a person, perhaps with a song, or the Master, or the TARDIS, or the companions. I'm counting the TARDIS as a who. I wouldn't say a person, but a who, because the TARDIS is technically alive, and you've got the cloister bells. If you said what else, perhaps that might have worked. But yeah, I suppose maybe Toby Whithouse was trying to make it vague and open-ended, and then Stephen Moffat just decided that was a hint at the Doctor's biggest fear, perhaps, and he was going to reveal it. That, or Moffat wanted Whithouse to include it so he could do that later on. I'm not quite sure. Either way, if it was the latter, then he definitely should have said what. If it was the former, then Moffat would have taken what Whithouse had left as vague and open-ended and tried to answer it. Mostly satisfactory, but not completely. Also, there was a fun YouTube edit back at the start of 2014. I'm not quite sure if it's still there anymore, but it has the Doctor going into his room as seen in this episode, and it's revealed that his biggest fear is in fact James Moriarty from Sherlock, and what was edited was the post-credit scene of the 3rd series episode, His Last Vow, the finale of that series of Sherlock, and that was placed at the end of this clip as the Doctor opens his door, looks inside and says, of course, who else? And then we get that post-credits scene from Sherlock, His Last Vow, where Moriarty says, "Miss me?" quietly and subtly, as opposed to the more You Have to Notice Me bit that was at the end of the actual episode, and this bit was just a little bit of a fun bit at the end. But that's Sherlock Series 3, Episode 3, His Last Vow. We might review that at a later date. Anyway, the Doctor doesn't get scared by his fear, but Amy does, and the Doctor has to break her fear, as I mentioned, which kills the Minotaur. And to be honest, it is a good scene, but I do have to please the classic series fans. The Seventh Doctor breaking Ace's faith in him in The Curse of the Fatal Death was done a bit better, so to speak. It was done more realistic. It seemed to be part of the Doctor's plan as opposed to a last-minute thing, which makes sense in this episode for the 11th Doctor to do, to try and break Amy's faith. But I think the 7th Doctor doing it for Ace works a bit better. Both are incredibly great moments for their Doctor-companion dynamics, but I think the Curse of Fenric's one is slightly better because it feels more that this is the last hope. This is end or nothing, and the 7th Doctor has to be extra has to actually seem like he doesn't care in order to break Ace's faith, and it feels more real. Whilst here, the 11th Doctor has to quickly try to persuade Amy he's not a hero. He really is just a madman in the box. Plus, it doesn't seem that the Doctor, Amy, and Rory's relationship isn't really that much damaged by this. Whilst the 7th Doctor and Ace have their relationship has changed a little bit after that scene in The Curse of the Fatal Death. Ace is annoyed with him for a bit at the end of that story, and whilst they still have a good relationship afterwards, it's definitely changed something there. Whilst here, all that really happens is the Doctor realises it's too dangerous for Amy and Rory to keep travelling with him, and decides this was dangerous enough to make him realise that it's time for them to stop travelling with him for a bit before he faces his own death at Lake Silencio. So yeah, I think it was handled better with in The Curse of Fenric. And the departure scene with the ponds, it's a good departure scene, and the reasons why the Doctor's dropping them off makes sense. It is a bit surprising it's done in episode 11 of the series as opposed to episode 12 or episode 13. Well, episode 13 is reserved for facing death. The Doctor's facing his death. But episode 12 is going to be reserved for the Lodger sequel. So I guess it has to be done here. Before wrapping up, I have to mention Nick Curran once again does a brilliantly visual job with this story, showing off the 1980s hotel look really well. And again, this could be a budget-saving episode as well, due to the same locations being used for this episode with the hotel rooms and the sets. They just have to change some of the doors around. But I think, again, like with The Girl Who Waited, Nick Curran does a great job with this minimalistic set. Plus, alongside Neil Gaiman with The Doctor's Wife, as well as writing Toby Whithouse does a great job writing script scenes specifically around pieces of locations that would easily be filmed on a few pieces of set. So they all did really great jobs. And the acting is really great. We've got some great guest stars, including David Williams as Gibbis. He's fun. And the actress who plays Rita, is also really great. I also like Howie and Joe's actors, and I think those characters are also really great as well. And Caitlin Blackwood has another cameo as Amelia Pond, and she does a good role in this one. I think this is her last speaking role. She also cameos in The Angels Take Manhattan and The Time of the Doctor, and whilst she does have a laugh giggle in The Time of the Doctor, I think Let's Kill Hitler was her last proper speaking appearance in the series. So it's just an on-screen appearance now. So overall, the God Complex, it's really well put together, really well executed. I think my only gripe with the execution is that I think there's a few whizzy panny shots sometimes, and I think episodes 12 and 13 of this series also have this goodness gracious production team of Doctor Who. You would have thought you would have learnt after series 3 and series 4 not to do those types of whizzy panny shots, whether it's transitioning from a location or swerving round or something. You would have thought after series 3 and series 4 they would have learnt by now to not do that. But it seems to have made a comeback at the end of series 5, and it's sticking throughout parts of series 6. Yay. But besides that, this is a really well put together episode and a really greatly structured one. Great execution, great performances all around. Oh yeah, main characters. Matt Smith, absolutely fantastic. And Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill once again do a great job. Although their performances aren't quite as on peak as The Girl Who Waited, that was probably their finest hour, full stop, and Amy and Rory's finest, 45 minutes, and Amy and Rory's finest 45 minutes as characters. But they continue to do fantastic jobs here, and Matt Smith is just phenomenal as always. I'm probably going to be continuing to say Matt Smith is phenomenal until there's an episode where he is not, which might happen in Series 7. It might go down a little bit. His performance might go down a little bit in Series 7. But in the meantime, that's not looking to be anytime soon. So, well, depending on when in Series 7 it happens. But in terms of Series 6, it's not happening in Series 6. So, yeah, he's still phenomenal in the last 2 episodes. So, yeah, so Matt Smith continues to be phenomenal, and proving that actually at this point he's rivaling Peter Capaldi as the best actor to play the Doctor at the moment. I consider Capaldi to be the best actor at the moment, but Matt Smith is rivaling him. Every single episode is 100% effort from Matt Smith. Christopher Eccleston, by the way, is also a contender for best actor of the Doctor, as is Tom Baker. But it's really between Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi at the moment. Oh yeah, and David Tennant. To be honest, I love all the actors. I think all the actors do a great job as the Doctor, but specifically Tom Baker, Christopher Eccleston, Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, and maybe David Tennant as well for the top 5 actors. For me, not Doctors, actors, and it's between Smith and Capaldi for the number 1 spot at the moment. Yeah, say what you like about their Doctors or the eras they appear in, they're definitely contenders for the best in terms of performance. Especially as Matt Smith is just consistently phenomenal, at least as in Series 5 and 6. We'll see about Series 7. But anyway, so the God Complex, to wrap it up, I will be giving this story a 9 out of 10. Yeah, I find this a really enjoyable and really entertaining story with some great production, great execution, and great performances. There's a few obviously panny shots that I don't really like that came around in Series 3 and 4 and now are back again. And I think the companion losing faith in the Doctor bit was done better in 1989's The Curse of Fenric than it was here. In fact, I think Amy sort of lost her faith with the Doctor a little bit earlier in the series, with firstly in A Good Man Goes to War, and then again in the Girl Who Waited, or at least the older Amy did in that episode. So it's kind of, we're doing it 3 times this series. Amy losing her faith in the Doctor. Rory has only done it once, and that was last story with The Girl Who Waited. But I think the departure was handled well and a pretty nice way for them to go. Companions don't usually get a nice or happy ending when they leave the TARDIS in the revived series. I think Martha has probably got the happiest companion exit, and this one's not even Amy and Rory's actual exit. That's going to happen next series. So yeah, I think the happiest companion exit, at least for a main companion, would be Martha Jones at the end of series 3. So that's it from my review of The God Complex. Thank you for watching. Next time, the Doctor returns to Colchester to meet up with Craig Owens to say goodbye before his inevitable death. However, his stay is extended a little bit, as he investigates strange happenings around Colchester, which ultimately lead him to another encounter with the Cybermen. I'll see you guys next time for closing time. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. But we're going to see another one of these characters in a Series 9 episode as that. Anyway, so well, a B in mathematics being equals lazy. But anyways, but when Moriarty just says "miss me" quietly and subtly. I was just talking about that edit quickly because I found that a really good YouTube edit. Anyway, so I think the Curse of the Fatal Death, not the Curse of the Fatal. And Caitlin Blackman has one last appearance as Amelia Pond. Well, actually, she has two more actually, appearances later down the line. But I think my only gripe is Christ, Stephen Moffat, and your editing, and I think the Doctor Amy losing faith in the Doctor bit. It's not you. So that's it from my review of Closing Time. Sorry, that wrong episode. That ultimately lead him to a return